boop, boop. Beep, boop, toot, toot. Boop.
Did you just say boop, boop, toot, toot?
Beep, boop, toot, toot.
Beep, boot, toot, toot.
There's the notification.
If toot toot is our notification here on station 204, I want new sounds.
Toot, toot!
I don't know if you guys have heard of Mastodon before.
The rock band?
Not the rock band.
The dinosaur?
It's not a dinosaur, you fools.
You fool!
No, it's a social network client like Twitter, but a little smaller and
Is
a
that
little
still
bit better.
alive? I thought that died.
We have signal.
But
Someone sent us out the bomb. Oh, the music worked with that too.
Wow, it's so pretty.
File.
So actually, this is a good point.
Save.
Smart man.
We're doing After Dark a little early.
Are we though? Are we though?
And you guys know I won't be sticking around today, right?
Oh yeah, I needed to. Oh, did you bring
show's
the?
over, I'm out.
Did you recolor the camera for me?
No. I have the-
Okay, go to your cameras, in your camera tab, and then camera 4, and the shutters. What's the shutter set at right now?
160.
Bring it up to. I think you can go to 170.
75.
Sure. Bring it up one more time.
Let's
look
clear
up
out that
Carrie Ann.
host channel, shall we?
That looks better. I like that.
I mean, I do glow.
Huh. Colton said, "Sorry, host. Server's going to restart." Okay.
He said that again?
Oh no, I just saw it in the social.
Oh, I was like,
That looks better. And then we might need to do the same thing to camera 1. Let's take a peek. Ah!
what?
No dying.
Ouch.
Please don't die.
Okay. Okay. Oh, actually, that doesn't look too terrible. And camera 2 in preview. Camera 2 in preview.
Focus.
Oh.
Focus.
Smokey Durgan, probably encoders.
You need focus on that one? These look pretty good. I'm fairly happy. The color's a little off between 1 and 2, but...
I'm pushing the button and it's not focusing.
Oh, all right. On which one? 1 or 2?
1.
Okay.
Oh, hey, thanks.
You're welcome. It's my turn.
6 is Goosed. Okay, good. Aux 5 is
Cool. Hit the button now. On 1.
Bloop. Bloop.
Did it do anything?
Bloop. No. It's got a little lock on top. What does that mean?
You're
Oh, is it? Does it?
Yeah.
That means the camera's locked out.
All of them do.
Oh, well, no, they're unlocked though, right?
No, they're locked.
Only camera 1 is locked. Click on the lock icon.
Bloop.
There you go.
Aw, Space Kyle
I may have
noticed.
screwed it up. I have to put the focus ring in the other position now. It was a
That's what she said?
50-50 shot. I thought, ha 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 ha.
Sorry.
So in addition to a new beta client, I'm also trying an iPad. There we go. Try the focus thing again.
It's ringing.
Oh, that looks promising. Oh, hey, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Doing great.
Hello.
Sorry, we're just doing one quick technical check here. All right, try it again on 1. Do you get any response from that?
I can't tell. You appear to be in focus-ish.
Try it again.
Yes.
Okay, so now if I come back here. Oh, yeah. All right, try it one more time.
Boop.
Great,
Got
and
it.
you're good on 2 as well?
Yeah, appears to be.
And we're not using 3.
All right.
Woo!
Right.
Just a
Marsh.
reminder, everybody, we are live. We've got 5 minutes.
All right, hey, so Marshall, first off, welcome. Thank you for coming in. We're not starting the show just yet. Did you have any questions for us before we do actually begin?
No, this should be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Great. Yeah, and that's kind of the point. We do want it to be fun. We love like the human stories. So any stories you may have of like challenges and whatnot. From a questions standpoint, I'm going to kind of start off with the why. Like why create a space company? Why create a company based on software for space stuff? And then we'll kind of go into the, like what what problems is Cube? Oh, it's Cubos, right?
So we pronounce it Cubos, and
Cubos.
the product is CubeOS, so just to make things interesting.
All right, cool. Which kind of actually does make sense and is complicated at the same time. So, actually, we'll want. What'd you say?
Not as bad as Waypaver.
Wait, what Waypaver?
Pay waiver?
All right, so we're going to do what problems are you solving? What are the things that you can do? And and then this is kind of we don't necessarily have to get there, by the way. These are just kind of general questions to get us started. We have a live chat room. They'll ask real-time questions as well. That'll get moderated and filtered through me, so I'll just ask on their behalf. But one of the questions I kind of did have was, right now, it's open source. You can do a lot of things. It's very powerful. But I wouldn't consider it user-friendly. Like, if I'm not a developer, I can't just take your stack and drop it on my small sat platform. I guess my question is going to be kind of, are you working on anything, maybe that's not open source, whatever it is, where it's just like plug and play, where you drop it, you hit a few check marks, and it does, it works with these particular pieces of hardware, and now you've got a satellite kind of thing.
Yep.
So
yeah, we are, and I'll talk a little bit about that in the show.
Cool.
Yep.
And I think that's generally about it, and then we've got some general questions we'll ask you at the end. We're going to start with news that'll last 15 to 20 minutes. I always say 10 to 15, and that's a lie. It's going to last 15 to 20 minutes. So we'll do news, we'll go to a break, we'll come back straight into your interview. And can I get his name banner really quick, Dada, up on screen? It should be slot 3, if that helps. There you go. So I don't know if you can read it. I think it says, it reads correct, and it's CEO and co-founder of Cubos.
There you go.
I'm going to screw that up at least once in the show, just so you know.
Cubos.
That's okay.
Cubos. Feel free to correct me every time. And everyone watching live, take a shot every time I do it wrong. Don't do that, you'll get alcohol poisoning.
Well, yeah.
All right.
We want the interview to be good.
I do need you to talk for a little bit so we can do an audio check. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
When I woke up, I had a big bowl of cereal with my son. We sat down and ate some Cheerios. It was great. It was like a giant bowl of Cheerios. We really like to drink the milk together, kind of sip it up.
How you doing?
Is that good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Great. Work great.
That's amazing. My daughter loves that too.
Yeah, just the giant milk.
Every time I have cereal, she wants to take a sip of milk with me.
Yeah, you do the tilt up together kind of thing. Yep.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
Hard to get her to stand on her feet and not like dip her head down.
And for name pronunciation, it's Marshall Culpepper, correct?
You got it.
Great.
Ben, you're okay with position and lighting? With his position and lighting?
You're actually you're a bit all up in our face. Do you have any room to move either your camera backwards or you backwards?
And still be comfortable.
Yeah, and most importantly, you need to be comfortable, because if you're not, it's going to come across on camera.
There we go. I'm only worried about my headphone cable. I don't want it dangling in the. There we go. Is that a little bit better?
Yeah, that's much. It feels a little bit less like we're like all up on you.
Yep.
Which camera?
Gotcha.
That camera. All right. I'm ready in here, Dada.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, and I think we're right on the time marker. How about Jared and Carrie Ann? You guys ready?
Head us go.
All right, hit the buttons.
Okay.
Oh, wait, no, don't hit the buttons.
Oh, record?
Yeah. I already formatted, so we're good there.
Yay. Thank you.
We're rolling. You can start.
Everybody feeling good?
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky?
Welcome to tomorrow. This is Orbit 10.23. I am one of your many, many hosts today. I'm Carrie Ann. I've got Jared. I've got Mike. I've got Dutta. Poor sleep-deprived Dutta. We've also got a bed in the background and a great guest for you. But before we get started into all of that, I want to make sure I give a huge shout-out to all of our patrons. Actually, these are our Escape Velocity patrons. These are the people who've given us $10 or more for this particular segment of this particular episode because they really, really believe in all of the crazy things that we do. And if you, too, would also like to contribute to all of the crazy things that happen here, feel free to head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. It's been a week, and it's just going to get even better as we go along.
Yes.
So, Mike, as we so often like to make you dance at the front end of the show, you got a lot of stuff to talk to us about. So why don't we just go ahead and jump on into it. What's the first thing you got to talk to us about, Mike?
Yeah, there was a lot of launches this week, most of which all happened yesterday. But first off, we had a Chinese launch earlier in the week, although there was a problem with this launch, so there wasn't a whole lot of footage. But let's check out what little was provided. And that's it. That's it. And obviously, that was some amateur footage because
I love
there
it. They were
was
like,
no
"That was
official
enough."
footage put out.
That was a little close.
Wouldn't be surprised if there was a guard nearby and was just like, "Hey, you can't be taking cell phone video of that."
Right.
And that was provided from China Spaceflight, a really good Twitter account that provides a lot of really awesome information from China. But in any case, this launch was supposed to be launching the ChinaSat 9A communications satellite. This launched on Sunday, June 18th at 16:10 Coordinated Universal Time from the Xichang Space Center. And with this satellite, it was supposed to reach geostationary Earth orbit, but it seems that there was a problem with the third stage of the satellite of the Long March 3B rocket that did not perform as expected, and so it wasn't put into the correct geosynchronous transfer orbits. And it's supposed to be at 35,800 kilometers, and right now the ChinaSat 9A is currently at around 16,360 kilometers. So it's less than half the altitude that is needed to circularize its orbit to be geostationary. And the Long March 3B is the rocket that you see in the middle there that has 4 boosters during the launch. Now, so far, the spacecraft is healthy, and they do have enough fuel on board to potentially get to the correct orbit, although the spacecraft was designed to last for about 15 years. So if they do use its onboard propellant to circularize and first get into the correct altitude that they need, then it's significantly going to cut short the lifespan of that satellite. So we'll see what they need to do. But one way or another, they have to move the satellite anyway. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That sucks.
Yes.
Right? Because yeah, like you're saying, like you either have to get it to up into the right orbit, and then, instead of lasting 15 years, you could potentially only last 10 or 8 years. I mean, that could, half its time span up there because it doesn't have the fuel to continue to stay in the correct orbit, or you have to deorbit and try again, which is all kinds of sadness, and nobody wants to do that if we don't have to.
And something that I didn't mention too is its high point, even though it's at 16,000 kilometers, its low point is only 100 kilometers. So it's passing the orbits of lots of different satellites.
Yeah.
Even though it's in a different inclination than the International Space Station, there's no risk of it hitting that. There's still traffic that they have to move it. They either need to deorbit the satellite or push it out of the way so that it's not a problem.
Wow.
Man.
Yeah, that's rough. Glad I'm not making those decisions.
China had some other good news later on that we'll talk about, though. But let's go ahead and move on to the next launches this week.
Totally.
So all on Friday, and for me, from my perspective, this next launch happened on Thursday night, but technically it was Friday Coordinated Universal Time. So I'm talking about an Indian PSLV, Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle launch. So let's check out the footage from that. With this launch, it launched on Friday, June 23rd at 3:59 Coordinated Universal Time from the Satish Dhawan Space Center on India's southeast Sriharikota Island. And 31 satellites were on board this launch, the primary one being Cartosat 2E, which with it, it's joining the fleet of Earth imaging platforms to help observations of cities, crops, natural disasters, and other targets for the Indian civil and military authorities to have cartography data. And India also had a small satellite with this this launch as well, called NewSat for agricultural monitoring, developed by Indian university students, as well as 29 other small satellites and CubeSats for other countries around the world. And I really appreciate that the footage of this is getting just better and better, and we'll see the payload deployment in a moment. There's Cartosat 2E that you see on your screen. That's the NewSat developed by the Indian university students, and then there was 10 satellites for the United States of America, and then there were 3 satellites each for the United Kingdom, for Italy, and then as well as for Belgium. And then there was 1 satellite apiece for Japan, for France, for Germany, Finland, Chile, Austria, Slovakia, the Czech Republic, Lithuania, and Latvia. So that was really cool that they were able to do that. Obviously, it wasn't quite as much as the 104 satellites, and here's the payload deployment as well. So congratulations to the Indian Space Research Organization and everyone else who was involved in this launch. And I'm happy to see more and more launches coming out of India. So, you know, very cool.
After last week's show, a lot of the comments, and I think we have one in the comment section, but a lot of the comments were talking, there was a very long conversation, I suppose, on our Reddit page. And if you're interested, feel free to, Reddit.r/TMRO. But this one in particular got a lot of comments talking about the international Space Station and international groups working together, international governments working together, how long ago that was, how long, how we've done, all those different things. And this is like the freaking Olympics of satellites here. This is like everybody, just about, it seems like, right?
Yeah,
like that's so awesome. Maybe
between
they
this and like the last
Olympics.
2 launches, yeah.
Yeah, right. that's really, really cool. So there's one more feather in somebody's cap talking about the internationalness of space in general. So that's really cool. And we've got more. So tell me more. What have you got, Mike?
So this next one, there actually is no footage of this because this was a classified military launch, but I was particularly excited for this because this is the return to flight of the Soyuz 2-1V. And what makes the 2-1V special, even you would be able to identify that, differentiate that one from the other Soyuz, because it does not have the classic boosters on the side. It's just a single core stage.
Sure.
But there was a picture of the Soyuz on the pad from this particular launch. This, again, was Friday, June 23rd at 18:04 coordinated Universal Time, and it launched from the Pleset Cosmodrome. And with this launch, it happened about an hour before SpaceX's launch, which we'll get to in just a moment. And this was the 3rd flight of the Soyuz 2-1V. And the reason I said return to flight earlier is because its first flight was conducted in December of 2013, and that's not to be its second flight in December of 2015. The payload for that did not separate from the Volga upper stage, but after a long investigation, it was determined that the inner stage adapter between the payload and that Volga upper stage, or rather the decoupler, was faulty and didn't separate. So there was no problem with the rocket itself, and so this was able to clear its launch and go through. And there's a footage, if you want to watch, of one of those previous launches of the Soyuz 1. But in that one, in that picture, you can definitely tell. You can definitely tell with this how it's different.
Yeah. Yeah, that does look funny, though.
It's so skinny.
So yeah, that was footage of the mission back in 2015. But even so, the Russian Ministry of Defense declared this mission a success, even though we don't know what the payload is. So that was pretty cool. But let's go ahead and move right along to the SpaceX launch. This is the one I'm most excited about. Let's just go ahead and start rolling the footage.
Absolutely.
3, 2, 1.
So yeah, SpaceX successfully launched this Falcon 9, which was a reused rocket, or rather a flight-proven Falcon 9 rocket, carrying Bulgaria's first communications satellite. And this was on Friday, June 23rd at 19:10 Coordinating Universal Time, and launched from Launch Complex 39A at Cape Canaveral, Florida. Now, after separating from the second stage, the first stage was able to successfully return to Earth and made a successful landing on the Atlantic-based drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. Although the video feed of that was lost. We did get to see that landing. You'll see that in just a second, right here where we lost the feed. Now, with this, the first stage rocket, it's designated Core 1029, originally launched the Iridium Next satellites, numbers 1 through 10, back in January of this year. And boom, there we see that it was a successful landing. Even though it's slightly tilted, it looks okay. And when it first launched, it actually launched back in January of this year from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California and landed on the Pacific-based drone ship Just Read the Instructions only 6 months ago. This makes Core 1029 the first Falcon 9 stage to launch from both the west and east coast and land on both of the drone ships. So that's historic. Here's another first. And of course, they had a successful mission and were successfully able to deliver the Bulgaria sat into a good geosynchronous transfer orbit. So congratulations to SpaceX and everyone involved with this launch and making this a success.
That's really cool. I guess I didn't
So
realize
cool.
that had flown originally from, like you were saying, from California and landed there, and then that's really cool.
Yeah.
2 coasts.
Yeah. That should
coasts
also
and
get a
both
nice
drone
monument,
ships.
if I do say so myself.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if they're going to keep reusing this one or if it's going to be another one of the museum pieces. I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Huh.
We'll take it up at
Yeah.
Griffith. If
Oh,
nobody
there you
wants
go.
it, we'll take it.
Right?
So, we'll just put it out front in the parking lot. I mean, it's not like we have parking.
I'm
anyhow,
sure there's a
but-
list. I'm sure there's a list.
Right? Oh, that's
But
hilarious.
anyway, yeah, that's it for lunches this week.
All right. Good. So, Jared, you can compete with that, right?
Yeah, I've got something nice. Nice.
All right, lay it
So-
on me. What's going on?
So, one of NASA's oldest space programs within the space program,
Yeah.
within the program of space itself, has deployed a new telescope, and it's using the International Space Station as actual platform for it. Now, this telescope is called NICER, which stands for Neutron Star Interior Composition Explorer. So I will be calling it NICER from here on out. It's a part of NASA's Explorers program, which actually was originally started by the U.S. Army in early 1958, but then was transferred to NASA in late 1958. So this is the longest running science program in NASA's portfolio of science programs that
That's
they run.
cool.
So NICER is going to perform what we call spectroscopy.
Yeah.
There we go. That
All
went
right.
well. Spectroscopy, which is when you take in light and you break it into multiple wavelengths and analyze it from that. Now, it's not going to be using the light that your and I eyes could see. It's actually going to be using X-ray light, and specifically, it's going to be looking for X-ray light coming from neutron stars. And very interestingly, this is the first space science mission that is completely dedicated to observing and studying neutron stars as well. Now, neutron stars are some of the densest objects in the universe. They form when a star 5 to 20 times the mass of our own sun ends its life in a stellar explosion that we call supernovae. Now, NICER is an array of 56 X-ray photon detectors, and it's on a gimbal platform attached to the exterior of the International Space Station so that it can point at any point in the sky. And it's going to take about 15 million seconds worth of exposures over its 18-month mission. Now, it's currently in its commission phase. The other day, they were actually testing out the gimbal system on board the International Space Station. Here's awesome footage of that, which is very sped up. It doesn't actually move that fast. But it's expected to take its first data, or its scientific first light data, on July 13th. Now, it was delivered in the unpressurized portion of the CRS-11 Dragon, known as the trunk, and it was installed on the outside of the International Space Station on June 13th. And one very neat addition to this, besides studying neutron stars, is it has a scientific payload on board that actually is going to test to see if you can use pulsars, which are neutron stars that are spinning very, very fast. It's going to see if you can use them as sort of a deep space navigation system, sort of like GPS, but using pulsars and the timing from their spins to see if you can actually use that to navigate in space. So that's going to be really, really cool.
That is cool. Prismera from the chat room says, won't vibrations from people inside the station interfere with observations?
It shouldn't, from what I understand. It's set up on a gimbal system, which actually is designed to take those vibrations that come from the International Space Station.
Cool. That's really
Very
neat.
interesting.
Yeah.
All those astronauts doing somersaults could really throw, everything into
Also, neutron stars are really bright in X-ray,
Yeah.
so you don't have to take very long exposures to get light from them as
so
well.
it's like super easy to see.
Yeah, it's usually a couple seconds worth of exposure. That's all you need to actually capture X-ray light from a neutron star. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Like trying to take a picture of a toddler.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So, Mike, you got some anti-launch stories here. Some undocking and redocking. What's going on?
Yeah. So there was some good news from China. I felt like I needed to talk about this since they had the partial launch failure.
Totally.
Their first cargo ship, Tianzhou 1, has successfully undocked, did a fly around of the Tiangong 2, and redocked. And there is some footage of that. So with this, their first vehicle, Tianzhou 1, it launched back on April 20th. And it's now completed the 60 days at the station, and it's completed 2 refueling tests at Tiangong 2. The whole purpose for this test to make sure that they can actually resupply a space station. And after that, they redocked to it. They undocked again for the 3rd time, and Tianzhou 1 will begin a 3-month free flight period in a different orbit than Tiangong 2, and will do some automated science experiments. And then before it conducts its final rendezvous and docking with Tiangong 2, which they're going to try to test the fast rendezvous maneuvers that have kind of been tested out the International Space Station before ending its mission by burning up in the atmosphere. And this is all paving the way for China's next big space station module, which will be launched at the hopefully the beginning of 2019, kicking off their Mir-class space station and probably the next International Space Station. So,
Yeah.
very cool.
That is really cool. Yeah, I was going to ask why, but then you already answered, so thank you. I appreciate that. I'm like, why would they do such a thing? That seems like craziness. And you're like, oh, just a practice. I'm like, oh, I get it. Cool. All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Go China. Jared, some Kepler information?
Yeah, of course, Kepler, the Kepler Space Telescope, which is in space, as its name would imply, is looking at light coming from stars and other exoplanets, or to see the exoplanets moving in front of those stars. Now, they just released the latest data set from Kepler, and it has 219 confirmed planets in its hull. So that now brings Kepler's total number of planets that it has confirmed to 2,335. And it's provided about 4,000 candidates, which are basically light curves that we look at and we say, well, we're not sure it's a planet just yet. We still need a little additional data. Now, 10 of those new planets discovered are similar in mass to Earth, and they're orbiting within the habitable zones of their stars, which several of these habitable zone Earth-sized exoplanets are actually orbiting stars like our sun. So we've been finding a lot of habitable planets around dwarf stars, which dwarf stars are a little more temperamental in terms of radiation output and solar flares and other things like that. So maybe not the best place to have an actual habitable planet, because we're getting zapped all the time by that dwarf star. But a star like our sun is relatively stable, so now we're starting to find exoplanets around stars very similar to our sun. So one thing that did happen with Kepler back in 2012 was that multiple reaction wheels failed. So they've been using a new way of actually working with Kepler to stabilize it. The engineers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory realized that with the solar panels on Kepler, they're symmetrical. So you can actually point that towards the sun and use the photon pressure from light itself to stabilize Kepler. And that's what they've been doing since about 2013. And they're just instead of Kepler looking at one spot in the sky like it did for 3 years, it's now drifting across the sky and taking measurements as it looks over a larger area of the sky. Now that means that we can't really find exoplanets that have very long orbits because Kepler can only look at one spot in the sky as it moves for about 88 days. But we can always revisit the next year that area in the sky as well. And then here's a nice little chart of the total planet candidates in terms of size and orbital period, so how long it takes to go around that star once. The blue is what it's already found. The yellow is a part of the latest data release. And what's so cool, you can, if you look at this chart as the data is released, it goes from really big, like super Jupiters, and it starts to get better and better as we get better with our data down towards Earth-sized planets over the years. So very, very cool that we are still getting great data from Kepler.
So I feel like this is not the first story this year that we've had about exoplanets and possibly habitable. I think we need like a count.
A count? Like a total count?
Like, bing, Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
I want to say that the total
counter.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay,
I would
yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, just be like, well, this is 219 of them. Like, all right, cool. Add 200. Bing. Now our total, like, so far, just for 2017 is, however many.
That'd be pretty cool.
I
We can
think
figure
so.
it out. I know we have a counter at Griffith that says how many total confirmed exoplanets there are, and it's somewhere around like 3,428, somewhere in there.
Wow.
So it's a lot. So
That's also news to me that I knew about the reaction wheel problem, but I didn't know that it was looking at other parts of the sky now. Originally, it was just looking at the constellation of Cygnus. So
Yes.
that's really exciting to me that it's starting to look at other places, because it was like, cool, we're finding all these planets in one part of the sky, most of which are pretty far away from us.
Yeah.
But now that excites me to look, just look around a little bit more. That's cool.
I like it. That's really cool.
yeah, it's pretty cool. And next year we're going to have TESS, the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, which is going to be doing what Kepler does, but for the entire sky.
Oh, wow.
So that's going to be really exciting. It won't be looking as deep as Kepler did. Kepler looked
great.
about 3,000 light years or so deep, but it will look at a larger number of stars to catalog them and see if there's any exoplanets there. So
That is really fascinating. So that's really good news, and we like that.
yeah, we love good
And
news.
then, Mike, you had such a good story earlier. What happened?
Things happen sometimes, man. And we need to talk about it because it's serious.
All right, fine.
I'm talking about a 14-year-old satellite that has lost control. This is Luxembourg's SES, the satellite operator SES. One of their old satellites, AMC-9, has stopped functioning and pretty much seems like they've had a complete service blackout with it. And this satellite is in geostationary orbit. This is a photo of the AMC-9 satellite before it launched back in June of 2003, which is kind of interesting that it happened in June. This accident happened in June, whatever anomaly this is. It launched on a Proton rocket, and it's supposed to be in a stable circular geostationary orbit of about 35,775 kilometers by 35,798 kilometers, and inclined 0.017 degrees to the equator. And that was their telemetry data as of last Saturday. But according to the Joint Satellite Operations Center, from a new tracking data set on Monday, it shows that the satellite is now at 35,615 kilometers by 35,984 kilometers. That's a big difference, and it's also inclined slightly 0.028 degrees compared to 0.017 degrees as it was before. And so this is causing it to drift. And they don't know what caused this yet. They don't know if it was why it had this orbital change, whether or not it was a thruster misfire, some sort of leak from a pressurized fuel tank or a gas tank, some sort of breach of a fuel pipe, or even an energetic event, in other words, an explosion of a battery or some other electronic component, which they've been having on some old satellites lately, batteries exploding. Or it could even be something else, like a piece of debris or a meteor impact or something. They don't know what's caused it yet, but one way or another, they are tracking it, and it doesn't seem like there's anything else causing any additional thrust. They are in contact with neighbors nearby that have operating satellites nearby, and at this point it's unknown if they can recover it, move it into a graveyard orbit, or even communicate with it at all. So we're just going to have to see how things go. But as of right now, there's so much distance between the satellites that are nearby it that there's no risk of any collisions or anything like that. And I haven't seen any data yet from any of the orbital tracking stuff that there are any additional pieces around this satellite, which usually implies that there's pieces of debris or something like that if there's suddenly a bunch of smaller pieces around a satellite that wasn't there before. So, but yeah, this is a kind of weird situation, but we'll see what happens and how SES is able to recover from this.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Well, best of luck to them. Goodness, that's zombie sats are always kind of a scary thing, just in general. There's so much stuff going on in right around that area that it's scary when you lose control of something like that. All right.
And if they can't gain control of it right now, it's eventually going to drift closer to their neighbors eventually. And so other satellites kind of in that area are going to have to use their thrusters to move out of the way and stuff like that, and then go back into where they're supposed to be for their normal service.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Otherwise,
and it's going to be a problem eventually if they can't. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's going to cascade.
Yeah, I think if it's a meteoroid impact, this actually wouldn't be the first thing in geo that's been hit by a meteoroid, if I remember correctly. So I think one of the GOES satellites actually took a meteoroid impact about 5 years ago, somewhere in there. So
Interesting. Oh, good to know. All right.
Stuff happens.
Yeah.
Welcome to space.
I know, space is hard. All right, Jared, I think, this is Issa and Lisa, and I'm
Issa and Lisa and gravity waves.
All right.
So, because I California surfing waves and everything, it's just kind of how it works out. So
Fair.
we have to talk about when we're getting in the waves. And we also like to talk about the European Space Agency because they do such
Why
great
not?
work. And they have selected their third large class mission, which is going to be a trio of satellites called the Laser Interferometer Space Antenna,
Right.
which I will now call LISA.
I will too.
Wait a minute, didn't they already have a spacecraft called Lisa?
They have one called LISA Pathfinder, which was to check to make sure that the technology for these satellites would actually work. And because
So they are related then.
they are related, and because it's been working so well, they went ahead and said, yes, we're going to approve a full LISA mission with 3 satellites instead of just 1. So, like I said, it's going to be 3 satellites. They're going to be placed in an orbit around the sun, and these satellites are going to carry laser systems on board that have been tested on the LISA Pathfinder mission. And they basically measure the distance between the spacecraft, and they'll be able to see distortions in space-time about several millionths of a meter. So that's very small. We're talking
That part I understood.
Widths of atoms, widths of protons in atoms small. Now, by measuring this distance, this is going to allow extremely precise measurement of gravitational waves from not just black holes, but tons and tons of sources, including the early expansion of the universe of what we call inflation. Now, LISA will also potentially be sensitive enough to detect the current expansion of the universe as well and get that rate set. Now, the spacecraft are going to do this roughly separated by about 2.5 million kilometers of distance. And like I said, they're going to fly as a trio in a triangle, shooting the lasers at each other. And this is a little bit away, but it's always nice to see the things happening because the launch has been preliminarily set for 2034. So it's a little bit out there, like 17 years out there, but it's very cool to see a mission beginning that is going to do some very fundamental physics work. And I'm very excited to get those results in like 20 years. So it'll be really cool.
Are we going to get results in 20 years, or are we just going to get a launch in like not quite 20 years? See what I'm saying?
Knowing the European Space Agency and just how serious they are about this mission, especially the fact that they launched LISA Pathfinder, that tells us that they're dead serious about doing this mission.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I just know that sometimes you do stuff and then you do the thing and then you don't get results for 18 years or something.
Oh,
and
no.
then even if you get results, you still, you end up going back over all of the results just to try and decipher like all of the information, and that can just take a while.
Yeah. Well, when they revamped the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, or LIGO, it only took them 9 months to get their first result back from that.
Nice.
So this should happen a lot quicker because the system will actually be a lot more sensitive, and because it's in space, it will be even more sensitive since we can do very long distances with it. So
Really
we
cool.
should see almost. You can quote me on this in 17 years. Almost instantly, it should start bringing back results on gravitational waves.
All right, right on. Very cool. All right, I think that was plenty. I feel like every news segment we go through, it's just like there's so much information. We quite literally take up half of the show. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Ben will be conducting a great interview with Marshall Culpepper, who's the CEO and co-founder of Cubos, with their Cube OS. It's going to be a good one. I'm actually getting the thumbs up. Thank you, Marshall. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes. She won't give up or quit or fall for little flashing lights. Filled with awesome expectation. This girl's a fascination. And nothing in her way will keep her from her destination. 'Cause she's fire walking. She's fire walking. When it's hot, she keeps on moving. But he keeps on improving. Yeah, she's fire walking. She's fire walking to be free.
And welcome back to Tomorrow. Now, before we get started with our interview, I wanted to give a huge thank you to all of the patrons of Tomorrow who've helped to make this specific segment of this episode happen. These are people who've contributed $10 or more. These are our Escape Velocity patrons. And we've also got our Orbital patrons. These are people who've contributed $5 or more to this episode. To find out how you can help crowdfund the shows of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. All right, I am joined by Marshall Culpepper, the CEO and co-founder of Cubos, which is the company, and the product is CubeOS, which is it actually will make sense in a moment, I promise. So Marshall, thank you very much for joining us today and taking time out of your Saturday.
Benjamin, it was a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
So before we get into what CubeOS is, why create a software space company?
Oh, what a great question. So I'm a software engineer by training. I've been doing it for about 20 years professionally. And a couple of years ago, I had an amazing opportunity to join a startup that at the time was called NanoSatisfy, who were trying to put a few CubeSats in orbit that had these little things called Arduinos on them. If you're not a software engineer or hacker, basically an Arduino is a really simple to use hardware hacking platform that anybody can purchase at like a Radio Shack. And the idea was basically to get hackers and students into space by letting them put their own software on an actual spacecraft. And so the idea was put on Kickstarter. They raised several $100,000 on Kickstarter to put a CubeSat up where anyone could literally pay $50 and put their own software on a satellite. So this was the concept. They hadn't actually done anything with the concept yet, and they didn't realize how much software help they needed. I convinced them to hire me, and within a little bit less than a year, the team that was there and the team that I had built had put 3 CubeSats that were launched from the International Space Station in short order. And they were called the RGSat missions. You may have remembered them from like about 2012, 2013 era. And so those missions really changed a lot of things for me because as a software engineer, I had never really considered the possibility that software could have an impact in the space industry. But what I realized in that moment was that CubeSats had fundamentally changed the cost equation. And as sort of a startup junkie and software guy, I realized that with the help of everything that's happened in the software sector and sort of all the disruption that's happened there, there is like a real need for a real serious company that takes software seriously within the aerospace industry, not just with regards to a specific operating system or a specific kind of technology, but sort of an end-to-end company that looks at software holistically for an entire mission. So as you guys probably know, that like all spacecraft run software. There's software on board, there's software on the mission operations, there's even software involved in the early mission planning and mission testing. And so what really surprised me when I first started in this entire endeavor was that there wasn't a company that did all of that. There was companies that did little segments of it. And yet in every other technology segment we see, we have software companies that do the software for an entire suite of technology. So the quintessential examples being Microsoft or Google, where you've got software that goes from everything to your cell phone to the cloud, or a cell phone that goes from your desktop computer to your phone, things along those lines. Well, we don't have the equivalent of that in the satellite industry for some reason. And so that's why I started Cubos, was basically to be the first software company that's wholly and fully focused on just software within the space industry.
You talked a little bit about how every spacecraft, every satellite, everything has software on it. Can you talk to a little bit of the importance of that software? Because we're at a minimum hardware geeks, right? We love seeing these giant rockets launch and these satellites going into space. So there's something tangible, something you can see with the hardware. But the software is one of those things working behind the scenes that you never really think about. So what's the importance there?
Yeah, the importance is hugely, hugely important. So just going back to what you said earlier, we're all hardware geeks. I mean, who here doesn't love to see a beautiful launch video and a rocket stage land on, the barge in the middle of the ocean? Those things are amazing. But every single one of those things is, at the end of the day, driven by logic that's written in software. And so while you're right that the beautiful sort of hardware and electronics there are just as important and play a major role in whether those things actually work, the software that controls the logic of how those things work is just as crucial and just as important, and just as much money and importance is spent on those things as the hardware itself. Even going back to the early stages of the space industry, if you look at early days of NASA, you'll find that some of the most important engineers in the space race, the early space race in the 60s, were people like Margaret Hamilton, who literally invented the word software engineering, literally invented the onboard flight software for the early Apollo missions. People that were first and foremost in forefront of the space race. So software plays a critical role, not just in on spacecraft operations, but it also plays a huge role in the ground segment of any spacecraft. You've got a team that's constantly operating and checking and doing software updates, doing commanding and controlling of their missions. All of that software is just as critical and just as important to the health and overall success of any mission. So again, while we don't see software in the forefront in any satellite or any specific spacecraft mission, it is actually crucial. And so again, I see an opportunity here to tell that story, and that's why I'm here.
So you mentioned a little bit, you're trying to create an entire software stack. Is this primarily for CubeSats, or is this for something above and beyond just CubeSats?
So yeah, just getting started. Yeah, CubeSats is where we are today. That's that's where I started my entry into the aerospace industry. So everything we do right now has been mostly focused on small sat customers that are doing CubeSats and microsats. But our long-term vision is to get into the larger satellites and larger spacecraft. And so as we are kind of a relatively early stage startup company, we're kind of earning our bones, if you will, in the CubeSat industry and the smaller satellites, and intend to go further up into more mission critical and more sort of government and other types of satellite missions.
So you touched on this a little bit, but I'd like to go into a little bit more detail. I'd like to compare and contrast. If I create a CubeSat today, right? I kind of buy one. You can sort of off the shelf them for the most part, right? What is the process I need to go through today, not using CubeOS, to get my software on board, versus what is the process if I were to use CubeOS to get my software on board and do all of that testing?
That's a great question. So today, one of the biggest issues in the CubeSat space specifically is that while the times to launch have shortened, the amount of time that you have for writing software is actually really, really compact. What happens is, because most CubeSat manufacturers aren't really at large scale, it means that you have a really large lead time on buying and actually getting any hardware that you buy off the shelf. So there's a number of different manufacturers you can just go buy your satellite hardware from that will ship you a engineering or a flight model of the satellite. And when you get it, it'll take maybe 3, 4, 5+ months before it's actually in-house. Meanwhile, you've already booked a launch. So you're at a hard deadline for, here's where my launch is, and here's when I've made my purchase of my hardware. So you've got to account for enough time between when the hardware comes in and then to develop the software, and then the software is good and it's stable and you've tested it thoroughly, and now it's ready for launch. And what typically happens, what we've seen in a lot of especially CubeSat startups, is that they don't allot enough time for software for the exact reason you mentioned earlier, which is they don't realize how important the software is. And then what happens is they go over their time allotment on software, and then they jeopardize their launch and they have to push it back. And it's actually really typical, if you guys have been paying attention in the CubeSat startup space especially, for launches to slip just because the software is not ready yet, or for even the worst case scenario, which is the CubeSat gets to space and the software is not ready at all and the thing is DOA. And so what we do and where we sort of improve upon that situation is a few different ways. Number one, we offer support for the majority of CubeSat off-the-shelf hardware already in our platform. So what that means is, and we also have emulation. So what that means is you can get started writing your software right off the bat using our platform. You can download it today. You don't have to wait for the hardware to arrive. So that means we de-risk the software coming after the hardware in your purchase process. The other thing that we do is we have a service called Hopper. And basically, we have all of the CubeSat off-the-shelf hardware available in a cloud interface where you can literally just take your code, send it to our server, and it'll test it on all the off-the-shelf hardware that we have in-house here in our office. And what that lets you do is actually test your code directly on satellite hardware and start testing and integrating your code much before you would be able to otherwise. As you can see here behind me, actually, is one of our stacks that we have in our Hopper cloud. We've got most of the major manufacturers signed up to be in this interface, and then our long-term vision is to do that exact same thing on an actual spacecraft, where satellite companies can start writing their flight software sooner. The other thing that is a big problem in this industry around software is that satellite operations and what we call ConOps or SatOps is usually not really figured out until later after the hardware and stuff has been provided to the launch. And so what we do is we provide our mission operations software, which is a cloud-based or on-premise based mission operations software. We provide that as part of our development tools. And what that means is you can actually start getting used to how your satellite will be operated in real life by doing it on the desk while you're still developing the software.
And you talked a lot about different hardware architectures. We have a great question from the chat room from, I believe this is the Twitch chat room, from Jarnies, which is, what kind of hardware architectures does CubeOS support? ARM, x86, Spark, so forth and so on.
Oh yeah, great question. So we actually, just to get a little more technical, we have actually two flavors of our OS. One is a real-time operating system, one is a Linux distribution, and we support the gamut of different hardware. So on our RTOS, we support mostly like all the Cortex ARM M chips, the MSP 430, and a few other lesser-known architectures on that one. And the Linux distribution, we mostly focus on the ARM processor, but we've also had it ported to the x86. And we are currently looking at PowerPC for some of the more space-grade hardware that's on the larger satellite missions.
It's funny you mentioned PowerPC. You think about those as an old-school architecture. I forget, but I want to say the fastest PowerPC that's space-rated is like 166 megahertz or something like that.
Yeah, I think it maybe is slightly faster than that. Maybe it's a 200, but it's
you're in the right ballpark. I'm sorry, I was off.
You're in the right ballpark. Yeah.
It's incredible to me that's what it takes to kind of get into space, because space is hard and the radiation just rips through these modern-day processors, something fierce. Also from the chat room, Neuropilot asks, does CubeOS work on field programmable gate arrays, FPGAs?
Yeah, so we are actually in the process of doing our first port to an FPGA-based, what's called a soft Cortex M. I don't know how many technical details you want me to get into right now, but there's a really well-known CubeSat manufacturer called CloudSpace that develops an FPGA-based Cortex M, soft Cortex M with triple redundancy and all the fun bells and whistles, and that's one of the ones we are currently working on supporting.
Citizen Big Number, I like that name, asks if you could give some concrete examples of what CubeOS will make easier.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we're really trying to save the headaches of compressed dev time in the early mission lifecycle, but then also around the usability of mission operations. Another thing that sort of maybe a consequence of the epiphany that no one's doing end-to-end software in this industry right now. If you go look at the available mission operations software for even just like a simple satellite mission, you'll find quite a few vendors that have really old, outdated software. And if you compare the usability of that software to just something really simple like Google Cloud or Amazon Web Services, it's really atrocious. It is really terrible. And while not only is the user interface for those programs really terrible, and you have to be seriously trained to use that software, on top of that, there's no integration whatsoever with whatever flight software you've written. So you've got to do manual configuration and do a ton of upfront work just to get it to work with whatever code you put on your satellite. And so we wanted to eliminate a lot of those problems. And our mission operations software, which we call Major Tom, is it's a fully integrated mission operations platform that integrates with our onboard flight software CubeOS. In other words, if you do any command and control definitions, telemetry definitions, all the stuff you typically do in a spacecraft on the onboard flight software, it's fully integrated into the dashboards and command and control system in Major Tom, which means you have no configuration to do from one to the other. And then the other nice thing is that we are using modern sort of UI UX from the rest of Silicon Valley style companies that have a really strong focus on high usability, which means that more people can use it, less people need to be trained. You can actually have developers or even, God forbid, executives use this software. And you can have a mobile app to do a lot of these little things. And so that's, again, we're just really hyper-focused on making the entire experience more usable and more tightly integrated.
All right, the nerd in me has to ask, is there any part of your software now, because you'll do the space-to-ground, ground-to-link kind of not the communication itself, but some of that control. So is there a piece of code that does say ground control to Major Tom?
Yeah. So, well, obviously that's the yeah, the inspiration for the name of the product is Ground Control to Major Tom, the famous David Bowie song. We do plan to put an Easter egg to do something along those lines in the near future. And we've had some funny versions. We've called the beta Lieutenant Dan a few times, I think, too. So, yeah.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah. So, as I understand it right now, if I want to use CubeOS and I want to integrate it in my hardware platform, I still do have to do some development there. I have to be a C developer, which there are a lot of C developers, but I am not a C developer, and I don't think a lot of the regular space nerds watching the show not C developers. That's correct, right? You have to be a C developer.
Yes, right now that's right.
Okay.
Yep.
So, are there any plans to make it so that I can just buy a commercial off-the-shelf CubeSat and then grab a future version of CubeOS and just drop it on there, and I don't have to do any sort of development? It's just a bunch of checkboxes. Like someone like me, I can be like, okay, I've got these modules installed. I want to be able to see these things. Call home at this address, ready to go.
Yeah, so the answer to your question is yes. In fact, I can do you one better. So if you remember the 90s, you probably remember that when you bought a PC, it came with Windows. In fact, it's pretty much still the case today. Microsoft had this brilliant idea of let the OEMs distribute our operating system for us. And it was a brilliantly effective strategy. And so I'm just taking a kind of a big page from that strategy book, and we're doing the exact same thing in the CubeSat space right now. In fact, we've got a number of different CubeSat manufacturers distributing our operating system preloaded on board the hardware. And so, in fact, when you buy this bus behind me or another one that's made by a company called ISIS, they will literally ship our software on the hardware pre-configured, pre-installed for you. So there is no setup or installations procedure. You just use our SDK to write your custom payload code, and you're done.
So you're trying to kind of almost become the Windows of the CubeSat world.
I don't like Windows, but you're not wrong.
That's fair. That's fair. Moving that a step further, you've got the software on your device, but you still need to be able to control it, right? You still need your ground control. Mac in Space asks, will you have satellite control from your mobile device?
Yeah, that is, well, so yes is the eventual plan. How we get there is the major question there. The technology is not hard to make that happen. In fact, we do it already in-house, for our own inbound testing. The issue there is more around what kinds of regulations exist around who controls the satellite and where and when. And so what we're trying to tiptoe into remote control of a ground station that's not on premise with the person controlling it. So we have some things we're doing around profiling the users who are actually going through that interface, because you do have to profile where the people are coming from and the ground stations themselves when you're getting licensing from the FCC and other regulatory bodies for these things. So all it really is us trying to be careful with the regulations because we're an early stage company. But yeah, the technical feasibility of that makes it relatively straightforward, and we will eventually have that as a major piece of our platform.
Well, the other interesting thing is you mentioned the ground stations, right? It's not like you could just use your phone and point it at your satellite and say, okay, send this command, right? You have to have that communications link between. It's interesting with all these different startup companies, but we've got some of the communications ground systems, we've got you as an operating system, then we've got the hardware platform. So we're starting to see some cohesion in all the elements necessary to actually create this next generation, really easy to get CubeSat that anyone could buy and fly. It's going to be pretty awesome. I think we're still a year or two away from that, but it's going to be pretty cool when you just swipe your credit card and have a fully working satellite platform ready to go.
Yeah, it's already pretty straightforward. There's a really cool website called CubeSatShop.com. You can literally buy a whole CubeSat bus with a credit card through the website if you want to. It's $100,000 or something, but if you've got that in your credit card, you can do that. And then, but you're not wrong. It's getting cheaper, it's getting quicker, it's getting faster, and that's what all of us are trying to do right now. Is just sort of that next wave of iterative, quick, low cost development. That's what we want to see. That's how innovation begins.
The chat room is extremely interested in security. I'm going to just rattle off a bunch of security questions all in a row so we can kind of do it all in one section. Space Mike asks, how hard and easy is it to hack a CubeSat? Lure asks, what built-in security hardening is in CubeOS and the SDK? And then Rebel Ace Fan, is the software as scrutinized as with airplane software, things like, and then Johnny Boy, how is communication security managed on CubeOS? So can you talk to Yeah, a lot of security questions. So talk to security a little bit from the OS and then maybe the comm link kind of side of it. Obviously, you don't do the link itself, but are you doing encryption on board to send through that link, things like that?
Yeah. So just like any major open source project, we obviously try to take security very seriously. We're also an early stage project. I'll just mention that right off the bat. But that being said, so we do take security very seriously. We are actually working directly with JPL right now to try and get our not just our OS but all of our flight middleware and everything sort of checkmarked for their cyber secure what they call it's like their new. Check off their new, I forget the exact word they use now, but the verification process for their new security. And so they are defining what that means, and we're kind of going through that process with them right now. But essentially, they're using all of the same cybersecurity protocols that are required for DoD software, is what I understand, which is what's used on all the major DoD satellites. And so, yeah, it's going to take us some time to get up to snuff for all of those check marks, I have no doubt. But we are taking it very seriously, and our long-term strategy is to be as secure as possible, especially as we get into more government customers. With regards to how CubeSats do security, I'll be trying to be as frank as possible. Most of the CubeSat people I see doing projects right now, it's not that they're not worried about security; it's that it's only going to be up there for 12 months, so they don't care anyway. Most of them are doing early technology demonstration, trying to prove something, and if they can just prove that, they're not looking to, it's not the old sort of, it's going to be up there for 20 years, and if I lose it, my entire business goes bankrupt. It's more it's a throwaway device anyway, because it's it's like a stepping stone for my project. And so you have to kind of have a different mindset about some of these earlier stage small spacecraft, because they're not intended to be around forever or intended to be a giant expenditure for a company.
You're also not going to have a constant uplink to these things, right? You have to have ground station control of that. So there's a lot. I mean, it's not necessarily security through obscurity, it's security through inability to connect to the thing.
That's right.
But moving forward, I can see a time, right now most CubeSats are in low Earth orbit. I can see a time where CubeSats are sent further on as we figure out some of this next generation propulsion, where they're going to planetary bodies that are not Earth. So security may become a bigger concern. So you are working on that, or at least that is something that people are thinking of at least?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. I mean, we know a few of these guys that are looking at both Mars and the Moon as CubeSat developers. And so the question of how you get the level of security a bigger satellite does when you've got literally a couple orders of magnitude less power budget is a real serious problem. And it's not just on the software side, it's also on what can you do from a processing power standpoint. There's just so many more constraints there.
Rebel Ace Friesland asks, how does CubeOS compare to something like the Mars rover operating system?
That's a great question. Actually, I don't know a ton about the Mars rover operating system, to be perfectly honest with you. But I do know a lot about what NASA has done in the past with some of their satellite onboard flight software. There's a really interesting project run out of Goddard called Core Flight Software Suite. And some of the stuff they've done there is a little bit more kind of old space open source type stuff. But you can kind of compare and contrast what we've done to Core Flight Executive pretty directly. It's a lot of sort of middleware, message bus passing, telemetry definitions, command and control, subsystem communications, ground system communications. It's functionality along those lines, where it's kind of the bread and butter of what a satellite subsystem does, or a satellite in and of itself does.
What's the most awesome moment you've had thus far, right? I mean, you're working on this software. Is there a moment where you're like, oh, this is really cool?
Yeah, there's been quite a few actually. So personal career-wise, it's hard for me to top so far. When I was at NanoSatisfy, so I forgot to mention earlier, NanoSatisfy eventually pivoted and are now called Spire, and so they're more of a data sort of focused satellite company now. But in those early days, there was this picture of me holding a CubeSat, and it was put on, I think, The Verge or something. It was just me with a pair of blue gloves holding a 1U CubeSat in front of me. It was a cool picture or whatever. But a few months after that picture was taken, for whatever reason, because ours was a ISS launch, I guess they decided to take high-res images when it was being deployed from the robotic arm of the ISS. And so there's about half a dozen of these super high-res photos of that satellite, and there's no mistaking it. It's the same satellite I'm holding in my hands. being the launch from, and here's the robotic arm of the ISS coming down from the angle, and then here's like the, the Earth, and against back relief. And I don't know, something about like that visceral, like I held that in my hands, and a few months later, there it is in high definition in space. And I'm not sure I'm going to be able to top that one. I can get a bigger satellite with the same thing, but as a personal career moment, it was a pretty high.
How about the flip side of that coin? How about like the most time-consuming, agonizing thing? You're like, oh, why won't this go? Do you have one of those moments where you're trying to make something happen and it's just not going?
Oh, I've got more than my fair share, I'm sure. Let's see. Well, which one do I focus on? Is really the big question there. Yeah. So late into the software, it was a software integration for a satellite I was working on. We had run into a problem where the SD card, which was where we were storing most of our like large files. Oh, you found the photo. Awesome. Yeah. So one of the SD cards that we were using for all of our most of our photo and other data file storage, it turned out that there was resonance on the SPI line for that thing with the radio that we were using. So what that basically meant was that anytime we used the radio, the SD card would go corrupt. And essentially it was a non-starter, because that meant if we were trying to transfer a file down, which means you're using the radio, the SD card, which you're trying to read the file from, would go kaput. So we had to figure out another way to get stuff off the SD card into another temporary storage so that we could downlink it and not compromise the SD card. So it's a technical thing, but basically I had to do this in under 12 hours before we had to hand out for launch.
Oh, wow.
And me and another engineer spent an entire night, overnight, coding a system that we lovingly called Dennis Hopper, because it was a Hopper system, but we really liked the actor Dennis Hopper, who had like just died when we were writing this software. And so we created this system and it worked perfect. I still can't believe to this day that it worked perfectly, but it was one of those things where it took us like a month to figure out what the problem was. And we had 12 hours to fix it, and we fixed it, and we were able to get a functional spacecraft out of it at the last minute. And it's still one of my most sort of like heroing, and we solved the problem, but it was like at great cost.
So very important question. You're up all night. Is it Red Bull or coffee?
Oh God. Yeah, it was not either, actually. It was, let's see, what were we drinking? Oh, it was definitely Coke Zero. I'm a big Coke Zero fan.
All right. I think this will kind of lead us well into kind of closing out the interview and then going to our regular questions. Dariachi, which is, they put a pronunciation guide in here for me. That's fantastic. Asks, how expensive is it to get a license for CubeOS? They want to put it in a VM, a virtual machine, and experiment. So, like, we've got a bunch of programmers. How do they get it?
Guys, it's on GitHub. Just go get it right now. It's on GitHub. GitHub.com/CubeOSTech. I'm not going to charge you a license. It's open source software.
Yeah, which brings up a good point, right? So it's open source. It's free. You can use it under whatever license you've got there. So what's your business model? How do you make money?
Yeah. So this is another area that I came from before I joined the space industry. So most of my career has been in commercial open source. So what that basically means is like making money off of free software. And most people, that kind of blows their mind. But actually, it's like pretty straightforward. We make all our money on actually supporting the companies using our software. We can do everything from go on site, train your team. We can write custom hardware ports of the code. We can write custom modules. We can add to the product things that you need. We do a lot of sort of what we call service level agreements, where we actually will be a guaranteed response to your team either during operations or development of your mission. So if things go wrong, or if you need like a software update, we provide those on demand. And then also Major Tom is another major component of that. So that's a cloud-based subscription where that fully integrates with everything as long as you're using CubeOS on your satellite. So that's a direct line of sort of revenue for us, is monetizing sort of the ground station infrastructure side.
All right. Where can people get more information on CubeOS, CubeOS, and everything you guys are working on?
Cubos.com. That's KUBOS.com. And our Twitter account is CubeOsTech, KUBOSTECH.
All right. Now, main questions. No right or wrong answers. We ask all of our guests these questions. All right.
Sure.
First one up. Moon or Mars first?
Oh man, that is a contentious one.
And you're stuck with your answer. You're never allowed to change it.
The dreamer in me says Mars, and the pragmatist says Moon.
All right, that's fair.
Yep.
Although cheating slightly, but fair.
I think okay, so fair. So I think Moon has to be first. I think probably.
Oh wait, why does it have to be first?
I just think it's a lot more practical and cheaper, and I don't think that we're going to find much success or like a sustainable Mars colony until we figure out how the hell that's going to work in a much more friendly environment.
Would you go?
When my kids are graduated from high school, maybe, and adults, yes. I want to be with them until then.
Would you bring them with you?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably not.
When do you think humans will first land on Mars?
At least 20 years from now.
When do you think humans will set foot on the moon again?
10 years from now.
My favorite question.
Mm-hmm.
Why space?
Maybe I can turn it around on you. Why not space?
Interesting.
I mean, the entire human history is predicated on, expanding our civilization to the furthest corners of this planet. Why doesn't that extend to space? To me, it just seems like the obvious next step.
All right. Awesome. Marshall, thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday. It's incredible. It's awesome that it's open source, and it's really fun to watch the small sat market really starting to grow right in front of our eyes. Even a few years ago, I kind of looked at it and like, that's not going to be a thing. And now I'm absolutely convinced that this is the future of us getting out in space. This is going to be a big, huge market coming up really shortly here. It's incredible to watch unfold.
Oh, thank you so much, and I fully agree with everything you just said. It's been incredible to be just a part of it and grow with it as it goes. So,
all right, thank you so much. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, comments from last week's show. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
We've always looked to the stars. They guide us, give us comfort, help us find our way. We see ourselves out there. When we look up, it inspires us. And we long for something we don't yet know. We yearn to go there. So, we venture forth.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. It's one small step for man, one giant leap for man.
The exploration of space will go ahead, whether we join in it or not.
Many think we stopped exploring. But we know our journey didn't end. We've only just begun.
Orion is functioning perfectly at this point.
Come with us and explore tomorrow.
And welcome back to Tomorrow. Now, before we get started with comments from last week's show, shout out to all of the patrons of Tomorrow who've helped to make this specific segment of this episode happen. These are Escape Velocity patrons. We've also got our Orbital patrons, and a special thank you to our Suborbital patrons. These are people who've contributed $2.50 or more to this specific episode. To find out how you can help crowdfund the shows of tomorrow, head on over to patreon.com/TMRO. All right, and apparently, did you take a poll in there, or did they just mention it because of my name banner?
What did your name banner say?
My name banner said something along the lines of trying to grow a beard failing.
Oh, that's it.
Okay.
It was odd. It was like as soon as you came on, everyone's like, "Oh, blah 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 blah,"
Yeah,
and I was
that's
like,
why. That's why.
Because the name banners, for those of you, not viewing at home, if you're in studio, the name banners don't pop up in real life. So
they do. You just can't read it. Like they're right there, right? See?
There it is.
No.
You just
What
can't
we
read
see
it.
is it's backwards, so we just.
Oh, it's backwards for you, not for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, because your screen gets flipped because of. All right. Anyhow, so yeah, hilarious. And then my favorite. I think my favorite was I saw somewhere in the comment room. Someone said, "Yeah, but Marshall has a real beard." And he does. He does.
He does. It looks fabulous.
Actually, I'm curious. I'm trying, but I'm failing. I'm curious to know what you guys think. All right, Capcom, first comment.
For those of you who watched last week's show, where our guest, not that he wasn't special, was Esteban Guzman talking about art and space and where they intersect. First comment comes off of YouTube from R-Instro, or Rinstro? Yep, we're just going to go with that. Once upon a time, quote-unquote, regular people didn't go on ocean-going sailing ships for the same reasons they don't go on spacecraft now. The systems of the craft are complex and not reliably autonomous. Every hand is needed to operate or monitor the ship. Space on board is at a premium, and there's no established destinations, which require spacecraft to get there, and so on ad nauseum. Basically saying, that every person on the ship serves a purpose.
Yep, it does today.
Yes.
Right. And then he actually did go on, he or she, they went on to say, I agree with Space Mike's, once we get space forts, in quotes, and so on, then a demand will go way up for families to get them to show up and so forth. Yeah, I think that makes sense, right? You're saying,
all the non-essential personnel.
Yeah. I think that's your point, though, right? Is that right now personnel are essential. We need something like a space fort where you don't need essential personnel, and then we'll be able to bring up families, and that's when we'll have a real colonization of space. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, and just like our intro was saying with the whole ship analogy, I mean, once transatlantic ships were taking place from Europe to the Americas, I mean, it was a while before regular people started. I mean, you could say that the first colonies, were pretty brave people, but even those people were very involved in the entire process, and you couldn't exactly say that those first colonists were non-essential persons because they all had jobs to do. So yeah, just like we're both saying here, until things like that happen where things are a little bit more established, then all the non-essential personnel can start showing up. So.
But we're getting closer to that, right? I mean, we're getting closer to the point where...
I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, but you look at like a Spaceship Two sort of flight. I mean, they're about, what, 6 months away? And those will be non-essential personnel. And, that's just up and down. But then you take that and you extend it maybe a little bit further. You can see where that extends to a Bigelow module. Well, they're not going to be essential personnel. And now you've got kind of this, it's not inflatable, it's expandable. It's expandable space habitat. No, don't call it inflatable, expandable. You can pretty clearly see a path here. It's just that we're not there yet. Is that fair? Everyone agree? All right.
Yeah, we're not at that stage yet.
All right. Next up, Capcom.
Also off of YouTube from Samuel Price. Because I can count and I can multiply, and for fun I decided to figure out your minimum donations, and it comes to a paltry $61,360 per year. You guys must really love making this program.
So yeah, actually, we do tend to cover numbers a little bit more in our Patreon hangouts and on Patreon, like where your funds are going, because over 100% of the patron funds go to something. I don't mind having this in the show, and I'll give you some basic numbers of. That number is actually pretty close. It's not quite right because it makes a few assumptions. You don't have access to the full data set. So it's closer to 60,000 per year. But you look at like this space is 2,000 per month. So that adds up very quickly. Then we pay people to actually work on the show. That's another $1,500 per month. And we've got bandwidth at $500 per month. We've got hosting at $1,000 per month. And you'll notice if you start running those numbers, I've already gone up to $60,000, not quite $60,000, because I'm missing our Adobe Creative Cloud licenses, which are another $500 per month. I believe that brings us up to $60,000. I don't actually have my numbers in front of me here. And that doesn't include anything like the cameras, the lights, the sets, or anything else like that. So we actually do like the show because we pay to be here. In addition to all the Patreon funds, it actually costs us money to run the show. Now that won't be like that all the time. We're actually we're getting very close to break even at this point, which is a really great place to be because we've been doing this for 10 years and our costs have increased But the show, I think, has increased. I would say the show quality has increased. Like, the awesomeness of the show has gone up. But if you're a patron subscriber, you'd like to know where your funds go, feel free to ask me at any time. I'm more than happy to let you know where everything's going. Some things are just like crazy purchases by me, like spending $5,000 on a graphic for a planet behind us, then going, I don't like it, let's do it again, and spending another $5,000 on a different graphic behind us.
It wasn't just because you didn't like it.
It was falling. Yeah, it was falling, to be fair.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the show does cost a lot. It doesn't bring in a whole lot. That's also not our only revenue source. There are ads, but, you know, we get very little money from that. And there are other things. One thing I did want to mention is I don't like calling Patreon donations. You do get something in return. You're not donating to the show. We're trying to give you something back. So you give to the show. Hopefully you get something from the show in the show itself. And then if you contribute to the show, we're going to do our best to make that worth your while as best we can. So your name in the show as a thank you, giving you access to content a little bit earlier than everyone else, giving you access to additional rooms, like depending upon, like giving you access to information and rooms and things like that. So you are getting something in return. So it's in my mind, I don't like calling Patreon a donation-based system. You are supporting the show, and we absolutely appreciate it. And without your support, this show would not be what it is today. We'd still be doing it because we did it before without Patreon. The show will still happen no matter what.
We've been in basements. We've been at the back of coffee shops. We've been in dining rooms and living rooms. This was actually going to be in our garage for a while.
Yeah.
So, we would still be doing this anyway, as long as somebody out there cared, for sure.
But every dollar, every penny you give towards the show is something that we can then put towards the show to make it better. And so we do appreciate every single penny because it helps us do more things. It helps us be more awesome. We wouldn't have been able to get these really awesome lights or be on Station 204. We wouldn't have Station 204 if it wasn't for you guys. We absolutely appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts. We absolutely appreciate it. And there are things I can do to bring those costs down if we need to, but it will have a negative impact on the show. So instead, I choose. You're contributing to the show. So do we. We'll continue to contribute to the show as well, not just in time, but in money also. So there you go. Hopefully,
our mission is not to make money. Our mission is to spread the word about space.
Yeah.
We don't make money on this show.
That's correct.
What your contributions allow us to be awesome at making space interesting for everybody else.
Yep. You got it. You got it. Absolutely.
That's it.
We're going to, as we get more Patreon funds, we're going to put that back into the show and do more cool things. You can see some of the rewards, but one of the things I want to do is bring back launch coverage. I'd like to expand this into other shows like science. I think that's going to be really cool. And then use those other shows, science, cities, technology, and whatnot, to funnel people back into space. I think that's a really great way to What are you laughing at?
Space Kyle says space evangelism. And then it goes on to say, have you heard the good word about space today?
That is kind of what that was about. That's what done it. You felt a little bit.
But that was good.
All right. Anyhow, enough there.
OptiQuest 21 says, I think Dutta needs a camera. We know!
He kind of has.
We're working on it.
Well, if we had more Patreon funds, maybe.
Hey, he has a microphone.
Dutta.
That was half the battle.
There's the back of Dutta.
There you
go. All right.
Next
well,
comment.
that was awkward. You've already been able to read the next comment for a moment. All right. Next comment.
Threw me off, man.
But just wait, hang on. One last thing to Samuel's point. To Samuel's point, we absolutely do love making the show. So I don't know. It's hard to read intent on the internet without any sort of, like, you can't infer inflection. So I don't know if you were being serious or sarcastic, but I'm going to take it as being serious. Because
well, right, because to some people, $61,000 is a lot of money, and to other people,
it's not. It's
not.
A drop in the bucket. So I have no inference there.
But still,
yes, we absolutely do, because we do lose money on it. We absolutely love making the show and joining you week after week to do this. It's a lot of fun.
The highlight of my week.
Yeah, mine too. I think it's great. All right, next up. I'm sorry. Next up.
That's okay. Next comment comes off of our very own website, TMRO.tv.
What? You can comment there?
No one ever does. But John Eric Thompson did. So John says, I strongly agree with Esteban Guzman on going to the moon before going on to Mars. There are so many, many things that need and should be tested out on our closest object first before continuing on to Mars.
I think we've determined that. I don't want to put words in my mouth, but moon or Mars first, Mike?
Moon first.
Okay,
We
Jared?
got to do both, but yeah.
Yeah,
I
no,
agree.
first. You got to pick one first, right? You're not going to concurrently have humans stepping foot on both celestial bodies at the exact moment in time.
I don't
right?
see why not. If we can get a rocket to launch from 2 different space coasts and
coordinating, that's a weird thing to
I
coordinate.
feel like maybe we could figure that part
So
out.
I'll say that everyone at tomorrow likely thinks we should do both. That's
Yeah,
not in
yeah,
question.
I think-
Obviously, Moon
yes,
and Mars.
yes.
The question is which one's first. So you're Moon first? Question, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Moon
Yes,
first.
yes, Moon first. And at least if not our moon, then at least Phobos first.
Okay, a Moon first. All right. Yep. Moon or Mars.
Yeah.
first.
I always say space first, but if,
What does that mean?
That means that space brings out the best in us and forces us to address the technological issues that come with that, and it benefits everybody from that. So it's not necessarily about the destination to me, it's the ability to actually get there.
Okay.
Is what matters to me.
The ability to get there.
So that's why I say space first. But if I have to be put into a corner somewhere
you in a corner.
and put the gloves on, Moon first.
Moon first. Dada, Moon or Mars first?
Moon.
Moon first. Carrie Ann?
Yeah, without the exclusivity, right? I don't want to say Moon first and then like another 27 generations it's Mars.
Sure.
Right? So
Work both concurrently, but
right,
you know,
right. Perfect world situation, blah, blah, blah. Do Moon first, learn some stuff, get that done, and then without it going past a decade more, you're on Mars.
Yeah, I'm actually with everyone else. So I think the entire crew here is Moon first.
Yeah.
And I think Moon first because of your point.
Rob Rancher is yelling. Yeah, for sure. Both, absolutely.
Both.
Don't
We're all
get
saying
any
both.
of us wrong.
And it cannot be Moon at the expense of Mars either, right?
Right.
We should be
Go
working
to the moon for the Mars program.
We
In order to
go
get
to the
to
moon
Mars.
in order to get to Mars,
And
in
beyond.
order to go beyond that.
Yeah.
We don't stop at Mars. We
Yeah.
keep going. We keep exploring. That's what we do. I used to be Mars first. You convinced me, actually, Moon first, because of the ability to look up at it and be inspired and go, there are people there. And I think there's a very powerful message for a lot of people who maybe aren't space geeks to be able to look at the moon and something in their brain, I think, might switch on when they realize that there are humans living on the moon.
Yeah,
I think that's going to be that's going to be an incredible moment for humanity.
My analogy, for those of you who haven't heard it before, in general, is that we're originally from Minnesota. We now live in California. It doesn't matter the highest thing that I climb in California, not that I can climb very high, but assume for a second, I can't see my family in Minnesota. But at any given point in time, assuming it's not a cloudy night, blah, 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 if I was living on the moon, I could go outside and I could see Earth, and they could walk outside in Minnesota and look up and see the moon. Essentially, we'd be able to see each other.
Right.
And that's that connection. And it's just not something you get inherently from Mars on Mars. And I think that's a huge motivator just in general, and it keeps that connection going as well.
I'm going to push back a little bit on Jared's comment of just space. Well, that's what we had with the shuttle, and we were stuck in low Earth orbit for 30 years. We always have to be stretching further. So I'm okay with going to just space so long as the intention is that, okay, Moon next and then Mars next. There always needs to be something bigger and better and beyond. And if we're just like, well, just space, as long as we're in space, I think then we get locked into just space. And we've had that for 30 years now. And I think that's actually a bad thing. I think we need to always be looking for the next great thing that we can do.
I think I have a better analogy for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
We need to go to the moon, and that is our space shuttle approach and landing test. And then we need to go to Mars, and that's STS-1 and beyond.
I see what you're saying.
Good way to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Okay, I could buy that. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So there you
Cool.
go. That's where we're at with that. All right, that is our show this week. We've got Jim Cantrell, CEO of Vector Space Systems, coming on next week. That's going to be an interesting show.
He actually just flew a rocket.
They just flew a rocket. Yeah.
So, good timing.
We're just talking about CubeSat operating systems and like CubeSat develop, and now we've got a CubeSat rocket coming on the show. It's all coming together. It's all coming together. It's absolutely amazing. That's coming up. That's coming up next week. For those of you watching live, or if you're at the suborbital or above level, After Dark is up next. And we also wanted to thank all of our ground support patrons. These are people who've contributed between 1 penny and $2.49 for helping to make this show go week after week. All right, I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching. We'll see you next week.
Welcome to After Dark.
Hello.
So, Space Mike, do you have a hard out coming up here? Space Mike?
What?
Do you need to leave soon?
Oh, no. If you saw my comments earlier, I was just trying to make us be snappy and have a timely show.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Oh, okay, cool.
Jared needs to leave, though, soon, right?
My job knows that I'm doing this, and they know that I'm not going to show up at the time I'm supposed to be there. So,
What time are you supposed to be there?
12 o'clock, but I already told them. I told them earlier this week I'm not going to make it at 12. So they know.
Let's do an intro really quick and get you out of here, so at least you can be there in a moderately timely fashion.
Although kind of funny, Johnny Boy says, Houston, there are blinking lights on the moon. Dot 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 dash 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 dot dot dot. Right, but at least you can see it. That's my point.
All right. What was your favorite story?
Could I say 3 launches in one day? 3 rocket launches in one day.
Was it really in one day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you go by UTC time,
that's what we do.
The PSLV was at 3, and the Soyuz was at 1800, and the Falcon 9 was at 1900. So, yeah, 3 launches in one day.
Yeah. That was kind of
Was
a crazy
that why I
day.
was so exhausted? That was an exhausting run.
For us,
do
from
all
our
of them.
perspective here on the West Coast, the Indian launch was on Thursday night. So that's why it doesn't seem like they were all on the same day. But they were.
All right, 3 launches the same day. Whoosh.
More planets from Kepler.
Yeah, Kepler.
Seriously though, we need to have a count because I feel like this is like
A Kepler counter.
the 5th freaking story this year of here's another couple hundred planets.
Maybe we should have a
NBD,
Kepler counter. What's
seriously?
What's the count
Didn't
up to
we
now?
just talk about this?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I talked with Marshall Culpepper about Cube OS.
No, Cubos.
No, Cube OS is the company. I'm talking about the software, which is Cube OS.
All right, I suppose that's fair.
And then you'll take us into the show?
Sure, because I never know what to say.
All right, me too. All right, here's number 1.
Great.
Number 1. Big wavies like this. Don't undo. All right, go ahead.
Coming up, 3 rocket launches in one day.
More planets from Kepler.
I talked to Marshall Culpepper.
That's 2.
Marshall Kepler.
Marshall
Great.
Kepler.
I got Marshall's name right, and I got the thing.
Okay.
Okay. Facing Mike.
Coming up.
Sorry.
Coming up. Coming up, 3 rocket launches in one day.
More planets from Kepler.
I talked with Marshall Culpepper about Cube OS and Cubos.
And I take care of the whole rest of the show on this week's episode of Tomorrow.
Got it in 2.5.
That was good. That was good.
All right, Jared, get the hell out. Jared, get out of here.
I'm out of here. Goodbye,
Okay,
everyone.
bye.
Good day, good sir.
I will quickly change and then be out of here. So.
All right, Colton.
I mean, you can't wear that to work?
No, I tend not to be able to. So.
All right, Colton. So the beta chat is definitely better, but still not usable. We were able to log in this week, which is a step above.
Well, yeah, and then sometimes get
2
kicked,
steps forward and then like
sometimes-
5 steps backwards. But I can't comment about you guys. I would get a few updates, like a few new lines of text, and then it would just stop updating.
I was totally fine,
Same.
totally fine. And then he went to update something so that you guys would be not totally screwed over, and then I got screwed over. So it was like, you're like, oh, you'll just make things red for me. I was like, yeah, that's not a problem, but nobody's saying anything. And I refreshed and I was like, crap. Now I could see the next 12 lines. And so then I went to your problem when we flip-flopped and you're like, I'm in regular chat. I was like, oh, maybe I'll try regular chat. I can't log into regular chat. Try to go back into beta chat. It's like, I can't log out of beta chat. Freaking fantastic.
Okay, so he knows. I'm just conveying what we saw. It's beta, so it's going to be buggy. But I will say this. A couple other things. In the Tomorrow hosts room, under beta, we can no longer click the little X to get rid of lines. And that's actually, I think,
huge.
It's huge for us. We don't need it in the main Tomorrow chat, although it's nice to have that in case we want to remove it from everyone. But having it in Tomorrow hosts so that we can keep that organized, that's really nice. The other issue is I'm considering moving everyone. I'm beta testing iPads. And actually, it worked really well for me because I can have everything kind of split.
I think that's the problem. I think you keep trying to make everyone use the same thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think it'll work for everyone.
Yeah, I'm going to make everyone use the same thing. So anyhow, trying iPads. Well, I want it to look nice and sleek on the show, and I don't like the laptop look. So
why? There's nothing wrong with this, and now I can use both hands, and it still sits here, and it's totally fine.
yeah. So what was my point?
I don't know. You're always wrong?
Yeah, no.
You try to just enforce your views upon everyone without even asking?
Yeah, that one.
You don't care what it is that I think about or how I feel about it in any way, shape, or form, even though the rest of the chat room totally agrees with me?
Happy anniversary.
Not yet. Close. It's coming up in a couple days.
You only know that because I told Dutta that story earlier today.
We have to tell the whole room that. Can we tell the whole room
Yeah,
that
of
story?
course.
All right, not yet. So being able to delete stuff is a big deal, and then for at least on the iPad, the color buttons, from a touch standpoint, I think they need to be spaced a little further apart and maybe made a little bit larger.
Ben has fat fingers.
I have fat fingers because I'm fat, and so being able to it's not quite as what am I trying to say? It's too sensitive. It's too the touch zones are too tight together, and I think that will actually work really well. Being able to boop 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 on the show, it's going to be nice. Even if I don't make Carrie, because Carrie's going to fight me tooth and nail moving to iPads, I'll probably move everyone else to iPads, and we're going to want those capabilities.
That's going to be awesome in my house.
What? Being able to touch. No, yeah, all you get is an iPad, by the way. We're getting rid of all your screens. You just get an iPad.
Wait, go to your camera so you can see like all of the crap you work on.
Okay, you can't even see all of it
All that stuff.
in this camera. There's a monitor here. There's another one here.
Yeah, it just keeps going off screen.
And there's another one here.
There's like a whole third of it that you can't see.
And actually, you're short. You're supposed to have 3 more, but we ran out of funds. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. So we're still going to do that. That's still in my plans, right? When we built goodbye, when we can never go to your camera. It seems to confuse you.
I'm a delicate little flower.
Wait. Do you have pregnant brain?
Dude, yeah.
Pregnancy brain? No, he's new baby brain.
New
That's
baby
different.
brain. All right. So
what were you doing at 3 a.m. this morning?
Wait, hang on.
Snoring
Watch
with
this. Watch
any
this. This is
luck.
kind of amazing. Ready?
Yeah.
Ready?
What the F is happening there?
I don't know.
That's weird voodoo magic, and I don't like it.
I'm on the iPad. I don't think you'll be able to see it.
No, you
but
can't see it.
If I scroll up, I can actually see more text below.
He knows what you're going to say before you say it.
It's like I can see the future. Oh, I'm over here. I don't know why I'm looking. I can see the future.
What should we call it?
I was tired. That one. Oh no, I was like I had a lot of stuff. I still do have a lot of stuff like concurrently going on. So my brain is broken. Our anniversary. That story.
Yeah. So yeah, we're leaving work yesterday because we work at the same place, and I had a crazy day. I was running all around We're trying to spin up a new thing in my area, my department. And which was a little bit unexpected / kind of expected. I should have known better, I guess, because things move at a breakneck speed, just in general, no matter what department you work at our company. And so we're walking across the street and we're trying to hash out some things. And how was your day? And how was your day? And Ben like stops all of a sudden and goes, "Wait, is it our anniversary?"
Bye.
And I actually looked at my watch, saw what the date was, remembered when our anniversary was, and said, "No, that's Monday." And he said, "Are you sure? Because like there's all this stuff going on, and like you have." I'm like, "No, you're fine. And I don't care." Like because I've kind of been focused on this. I was like, "It's fine," and you're like, "No, you do care." That's what you said.
My banner. I almost had my banner say, "Launch and land and relaunch makes it for a tired Benny."
Oh yeah.
It is. Oh my gosh, it's not easy, dude. It's not easy. But it's awesome.
At least it's not Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's so good.
I wonder if I can go sideways and do something.
No. Oh, you
I
can.
can
That's weird,
I
but
can
why?
Looks like Marshall's trying to say something.
Let me see what.
Can we bring him back in?
He's still. Hey, Marshall. Hi. Wait. Can we magic? Oh yeah, that was
There we go.
amazing.
All right.
I forgot. I forgot to mention pre-show. You are not required to hang out for the whole show, although you're always free to as well.
Marshall's trying to figure out when he gets paid for the
Yeah,
appearance.
he's like, how long do I have to be here? What is going on?
Social awkward penguin right now. Is it time to leave yet?
So, guys, I feel like my segment was over.
But awesome segment. That was absolutely incredible. And as we were talking about in comments, we've got Vector coming up. So we've got the small sat launch systems coming into play. We've got commercial off-the-shelf small sats themselves. Now we've got software going. The thing I think that's really missing at this point, there are a couple companies developing it, but it seems like it's a little further behind everyone else, are the ground-to-space, space-to-ground communication links. Like those entities that will let you stay in communication with your small sats at all times for a not absurd rate. But
Have
there
you
are
talked to
companies.
KSAT yet?
I'm sorry?
Have you talked to KSAT or looked at KSAT yet?
No, maybe no.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
So
Should
I would
we?
definitely recommend checking out KSAT. They have a new thing called KSAT Lite, which is it's a global ground station network specifically for small sats.
Cool.
Well, okay, I stand corrected. So then that's the last piece, and ready to go. I think the last. So it was that collect underpants and then profit. I think was the third step, right?
I also love how you said something about like just an off-the-shelf sort of situation. Like, there's no Radio Shack for CubeSats. You just like walk into a brick and mortar store and literally take something off of a shelf. Like, I understand that
challenge accepted.
I understand that is just sort of a term. A general phraseology situation of like, over-the-counter medicine means something that you don't need a prescription for. I get all of those sorts of things.
I'm sure there is a CubeSat on a shelf that they're taking off of a shelf and selling to you.
Just know for a nanosecond that you are getting older, and there's an entire generation of people now.
I'm not getting older.
Where when you say, just take it off of off-the-shelf components, it's not going to mean anything
kids
to them.
still understand what a shelf is. They may not know what a rotary phone is, but they know what a shelf is.
But you're referencing a very specific brick-and-mortar store situation.
No.
That does
Amazon
not exist.
has shelves. Amazon has shelves.
That nobody sees.
Well, to help with this debate, I have a quick comment.
Yeah.
There is actually a term in the satellite industry called COTS, which is commercial off the shelf. And actually, it's used pretty much across the board in any small sat provider. They'll call themselves a COTS satellite hardware provider.
Yes, and that's why I refer to it as it's coming from the term COTS.
Yeah.
It basically means that you don't have to design, develop, and manufacture your own parts in order to be able to do the thing.
Oh yeah.
I understand.
Amazon. Oh, I wish I could push this to air. I wish I could. I can't. I'm like mashed finger in chat room.
Great. Now you're just hitting all of the buttons. I wish you could see this chat room right now. It's complete disaster area from Ben. I understand the
Sounds like every
concept.
chat room I've ever
Getting
heard
that,
of.
Carrie-Ann, is that
Which
I think
one,
what you're
Ben?
getting that, Carrie-Ann, is that someday the
OptiQuest.
kids will say, instead of off the shelf, they'll say off the internet or something.
OptiQuest said Amazon literally just bought Whole Foods, and guess what Whole Foods has?
Shelves?
Shelves, and guess what they're going to soon have? That's right, CubeSats. I'm going to be able to go to Whole Foods.
At Whole Foods, yeah. It's
Go to-
organic.
It's an organic.
It's twice as much. It's twice as expensive, though, because of it.
Thank you.
All organic, though. We promise. And it's GMO free, we promise.
What is that? Yeah, here's a dumb question.
Gross.
By the way, you can hang up at any time. You don't have to be
No worries, this
with
is
the
fun.
crazy.
I'm enjoying
And
this.
we will not be insulted at all.
This is so cool.
How much does a CubeSat cost right now? All right. So you mentioned like $100,000. All right. I got my credit card. I'm ready to just go buy a CubeSat. How much is that? And then how much is my launch? Right? Because I still have to buy a launch. And it's who are they in New Zealand? It's
Rocket Lab.
Rocket Lab. Yeah. They're a few $1 million, but they can send up a bunch. So I don't know what the ride sharing cost is there.
So hang on, let me get my orientation correct here. So that satellite behind me here, this one, that one.
It's hard to do. It's hard to do, right?
Yeah, it's impossible. Yeah, but that's about $100,000 in ballpark for that level of satellite, and then the launch for that satellite is equivalently about $100,000. So you're looking at about $200K all in for a satellite about that size.
And what was that? If you were to rough guess, 5 years ago, how much would it have cost me to do something similar?
5 years ago?
Yep.
That's a good question because like hardware like this didn't really exist 5 years ago, at least not at scale. So you may have paid a little more, probably like a tiny bit more for the hardware because it would have been custom built. But then the launch, like you couldn't have even found a launch slot that small because no one would have been dividing it up that small.
So, and then if I were to go back even further, 10 years ago, it probably wouldn't have been possible. I would have to build a bigger satellite. So then am I talking like 10 years ago, a bigger satellite is at millions of dollars? I'm just trying to figure out
you'd have to find a ride-along, and then you'd also have to develop what's called a custom deployer. And so your deployer would be another like probably $500,000, and then you would still have to figure out how much the satellite that was like holding it would want you to charge you for it. So like what's really happened honestly is like it's not just the satellite itself that's been standardized, these little CubeSats, it's also the deployers. You guys were talking about the India launch lot today.
Yeah.
So one of our biggest partners, this company ISIS, they're the ones that integrates literally all the CubeSats on those launches. So they've done, I think they did 20 of those 30 satellites that y'all mentioned, and then they did about 100 of the last, like the really big one. And so what is involved in that integration onto the rocket are these things called quad packs. They're these like, they essentially look like giant spring boxes that like you would use for maybe for like a loaf of bread or something.
Oh, sure.
Imagine like a 3U CubeSat size deployer times 4, and they literally just spring out these CubeSats. I mean, those things, because those exist, anyone can make a 3U CubeSat at a standard size. And they don't have to pay for a deployer because the launch provider provides as part of their service.
That's cool.
So yeah, so that has also changed the way that it just becomes easier and not so custom every time you have a launch now.
Was it ISRO that had one that deployed like a kajabillion CubeSats all at once, where it's just like plop, plop, plop,
Yeah,
plop?
it was 100.
That's the one I'm talking about.
101.
That's the one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
so
really cool
100
footage too.
Yeah, it was 104 satellites on one launch, and 101 of them were CubeSats. And literally every single one was deployed by one of those quad packs made by ISIS. They were literally 4 at a time coming out, plop, plop, plop. And you saw that video.
Yeah.
It was unreal. I've never seen anything like that. It was amazing.
As Vax Headroom points out, the website for that is isispace.nl. ISIS space. I don't know how to pronounce that, but there you go.
Yeah. Unfortunate name, but a great company.
Yeah. Are they just gonna kind of wait for that whole thing to like because eventually that'll just go away.
Years before ISIS, so.
Oh, they take the Office Space approach. Why should I change? They're the ones that suck.
Why don't you just go by Mike?
Exactly.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's isispace.nl.
Yep.
That's funny.
Cool, guys. I think I am going to head out. It was really good. Y'all's show is amazing. I'm probably going to become a patron supporter.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday. It really was a great conversation.
Thank you for coming on the show. Yeah.
Yep.
My pleasure.
I'll ping you when the on-demand version goes up.
Great. Thanks,
Great.
guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah,
That's funny.
very cool. Yeah, today was a good show.
Oh my God, Citizen 526993. There we go.
Imagine ITS spitting out CubeSats.
Oh my God, thousands and thousands, just pop, 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 pop. Yeah, right. Just constantly. It'd be like 200,000 CubeSats.
It would be hilarious.
I'm just imagining the
from
video
1U
of
to
that.
12U.
Oh yeah, so Tawicked earlier in the chat room did some homework for us, and thank you for that, Tawicked. So 1U, because you get CubeSats in like universal sizes. 1U is starting from, mind you, 77,000. 2U is 240,000. 3U, I'm sorry, that was 3U is 240,000. 6U is 480,000. And 12U is 960,000. So I think I'm hopeful that these satellites will be able to half their price over the next 5 years, and hopefully half again over the next decade. I mean, these are very reasonable, but it's still not something that like even tomorrow, like just a 1U satellite is still more money than tomorrow makes in a year, right? So, but I would love for tomorrow to launch a satellite for absolutely no reasons, maybe with my face on it. I think
BenSat 1.
BenSat 1, yeah! Which means there's got to be more. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have BenSat 1 and Carrie Ann Sat 1, and they'll fight with each other on orbit.
We're not in the same orbit.
Wait, what orbit are you in?
A different one.
Any other orbit.
Her inclination is slightly higher than yours is.
I feel like I was just insulted there. This is amazing. You made me snort a little bit.
That's funny.
I'll put a microphone on mine.
Why?
To try to record space.
You'll be able to listen. I'll stream it live. I'll stream it live, space live. Actually, I should just simulate that right now. It'd be like sounds from space. It's just
The sound of space live.
Just nothing.
Nothing. Although every once in a while you'd have to have some sort of like radio interference or something like that to make it seem legit. Yeah.
We have a clip. Ready?
Oh yeah. Oh, there you go. That was the sound of space right there. That was live from BenSat 1.
That's hilarious.
Oh,
That is magical. That is absolutely magical. Ah.
Yeah. I felt like today was pretty good. We still went over on all the segments, but
Yeah, I think I'm okay with that, right? So the times are a rough time that we target, and we don't have to hit them exactly, right? Because we're an internet show. If we were not an internet show, if we were a broadcast television show, going over would be bad, or we'd have to steal from something else. But we can go over. I think we can tighten up the news a little bit. I think we're starting to get a little bit sloppy with that. We don't have to rush it, but I think it could just be a little bit tighter. I think the interview, it's always hard for me to tell. Should we tighten up the interview, or do we do okay there? And by the way,
it's so hard because sometimes, like even with today's interview, you know, we only had like 4 questions, weren't quite sure how it was going to go, and it turned out to be a great interview. So it always depends with the interviews, you know.
well, and I generally try to only have 5 or 6 pre-created questions. I mean, the whole point of us doing this show live is that you, the community of tomorrow, get to ask your questions. And so if I'm asking all of the questions, why is this live? Right? So I always like to focus on the questions, which is why the chat room stability is so important for me. It's also why I reverted back to the regular chat room. And we were able to make it work, right? So it worked. We were able to ask questions. They were great questions, I thought.
Yeah.
And I thought we got some really great stories. I love that interview. I thought it was incredible. So, but yeah, I mean, not all interviews are that good. Sometimes they're just not. So, I think we've done a fairly decent job of cutting those short, question mark.
Like when need be?
Well, yeah, when the interviews just aren't as good, that we kind of tighten them up. Maybe we should do a better job of tightening up the bad interviews.
I mean, yeah, I think we keep hoping that it's going to go better, but I think if you really if you have that question in your mind at all, you can just go, all right, so, and then just to close it out, we've got some questions.
Sure, yeah.
And then if they feel like they have anything else that they want to say or add, they can always then go, oh, actually, if you don't mind really quickly, blah, 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 like I forgot to mention this, or I wanted to address this, or, it gives them that opportunity. You're kind of giving them a warning of like, all right, well, we're gonna be done any second now. You know what I'm saying? And then, when you're done, you're done.
By the way, what do we think? Beard or no beard? Right here. I'm going in for a haircut today, so I'll ask my hairstylist. Yes, I have a hairstylist. I am that pretentious. I wear a tiara when I go there. So I'll ask her, but I want your opinion too. I feel like I can't quite, like my cheeks are too baby-like almost. Like I kind of have not a baby face, but it's definitely a rounder face. And this just makes me look like a man baby. I'm not sure. I definitely would have to, if I keep it, I have to clean it up. It's a mess right now.
That's not what makes you look like a man baby.
Hey now. I didn't say act, I said look.
So you walk around like this in a diaper all the time.
Oh my God, like that SNL sketch.
Yeah.
Right now you just look lazy.
with the
unshaven look.
Yeah.
This shadow.
It's not cleaned up. Well, and that's actually, it's funny you bring that up. That's why it's there. I have been working so hard. In the morning, I was like, I'm not doing this morning. And that lasted this is like a month's worth of growth is the other thing. I exaggerate, but not much. But not much. Oh yeah, I suck at growing a beard.
Okay. This is a month's worth of growth, and for the exact same reason.
You suck at growing a beard?
No, because I'm lazy.
Oh, all right.
See how it's not shaved?
Yeah, and that's the other thing is I got a little. I got to clean up the neck.
But I can
region.
it's a finger length that I can pinch and pull skin after
Ow.
a month. You non-beard growing.
I am a non-beard growing man baby. That's what my name banner needs to say next week. Non-beard growing man baby. I'm sure Vector Space would enjoy that a lot. I'm not pushing hard enough. Space Kyle says there's an awkward stage for beards. Yes, but Space Kyle, my awkward stage lasts like 2 or 3 years.
I feel like
He's still in his awkward stage from puberty.
You're also hateful.
I'm
right here. Right here.
I missed you.
Did you though? Did ya?
Yeah, he's surrounded by women at home.
Oh God.
I mean, you would. Oh, I mean, if his choices are you or Jared or Mike, I guess. No offense, Mike.
Half of them are crying, and then there's the baby.
Only because Mike isn't actually
And then
here.
there's the baby. Aerospike says, keep the sides burn Captain Kirk-esque. Should I make him like really long?
No.
Like good.
No,
Do you like the sideburns
burst
at all?
out like General Burnside.
they're fine. Burnside. Yeah.
Space Mike did it. Yeah. What? Well, no. Space Mike did the weird thing. Like it's like the hair. Although it's not now. Like earlier, when you like shaved off your head, you had like no hair here, but it was like coming out in the beard. So it was like the hair got sucked from the head and came out the beard region. Yeah. It doesn't look like that anymore.
Yeah.
But there, for a while there was like this like that's bad. Tip him upside down. Tip him the other way.
Somebody earlier said something about that there was something wrong with Mike's beard because it's not on the front.
It's not on the front.
Because I don't really have like a mustache very well, even though I kind of do. I'll have to kind of get close here, but the lighting makes
He's
it look
so
like I don't really
blonde.
have a mustache.
Yeah.
Even though I do, because it's kind of blondish.
Yeah.
But even before like it came out even blondish, like I used to just get peach fuzz for my mustache. I don't still really have a mustache, but I've always been able to grow this neck beard really well. And so the key to finally getting this to come out even just blonde instead of just translucent was just letting it go and just finally like having it grow out so much and be like so gross that finally it started changing color. And I think that that was like the key to of getting it so thick down here was just letting it go until it started to grow out. Because I'm here. I am 30, barely. I've had this since I was like 18. Being able to grow this much since I was like 18, and here I am 30, barely starting to get some blonde mustache hairs. So,
Mike, I have some bad news for both of us. We may not be able to have beards. I'm trying really hard. I feel like
for
I'm
men.
failing.
I'm just saying.
Just for what?
Just for men. I'm just saying.
just for men.
I hate you, Dada.
First, I need to use some of that right here.
What'd Wicked say?
Hollow Amish.
Real game.
Oh man.
Are we done? Are we wrapping? I feel like we're wrapping here. We need to do. So next month we've got our roundtable. I think it'll be about Sliss, and because we seem to have some passionate opinions about Sliss. I like to bounce the iPad, and then it's always like undo. I'm like, no, stop it. Citizen Big Number, have a good one. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Also, Dutta, remind me I need to fix camera 1. I haven't done that yet. I keep forgetting to do that. And then I see it in pre-show. Has it burned us on air yet?
Negative.
It will someday if I don't fix it.
We're on it for like 5 seconds.
I know, but there's going to be a day.
And fortunately, the times that it flashes are outside of those 5 seconds.
Yeah, I know. Although I was waiting for it to do that and be like, oh, it must be a landing rocket nearby. We've got, let's see here, this camera over here. There we go. Flashes black randomly. It'll just like, you've got picture, and it goes. I'm kind of hoping it does it on air. It's not going to because we're not on it long enough. All right, on that note, bye, everybody. See you next week. Bye. Bye. Oh, bye, Mike.
Bye-bye.
What happened there?